Stick with it, Paul.
They'll stick with it till it's done.
Stick with it.
So, maybe I'd better stick with it?
Stick with it, Paul.
Stick with it.
We've made a good plan, and we're gonna stick with it.
For Christ's sake, make a move and stick with it, would you?
It isn't easy saving the world, even one case at a time, but you stick with it.
Stick with it, Justin.
But until someone comes along with some changes that make sense, I'll stick with it.
I mean, pick a goddamn plan and stick with it.
When something's worthwhile, you gotta be hard-headed enough to stick with it, even when it hurts.
Well, you've sort of got to stick with it.
They find a world-threatening issue and stick with it for about a week.
Stick with it, Bobby!
That is, if you feel this job is interesting enough to stick with it.
The prosecution are legally obliged to stick with it.
I did an arrangement, it was kind of not so great, but maybe you can just stick with it. Yeah.
You should stick with it.
Look, if something works for me, I stick with it.
It doesn't sound that interesting, but if you stick with it, come here.
Well, you have to stick with it.
Pick one thing and just stick with it.
Stick with it, Bobby.
Yeah, I couldn't stick with it.
You stick with it, and you never give up.
Said if I stick with it, that maybe...